Gordon. I am the preacher in this house, and I'm here to say hi to all of you that I know and to meet all of those that I don't, to say hello to all of our friends who watch us live, streaming, and on delay through YouTube, and to let you know that there's always something going on here more than what you see. I have often referred to Fountain Street Church as the Forrest Gump Church. You never know what you're going to get. And there is some eclecticism, some variety, diversity. For example, not only do we have our worship going on today, but if you feel so moved, and I hope you do, you will see if they can take a pint of blood out of your arm before you leave today, down in room 109. I know at least 3 people in this room who have already given. Raise your hands. All right, 3 pints in. I'm expecting that some of you will go down, and you know what they say, give blood, get cookies. Remember that. Other things that go on today, you can continue engaging the work of Paul's letter to the Romans with me at 12:30 after this service. If you'd rather give blood, you're excused for the day. I assure you that talking about Paul is more painful than giving blood. Other things going on this week you can find in your order of service on the calendar in back. I want to lift up a couple of quick things, one of which is that we have a concert here on Tuesday. This is a WGVU NPR pop-up concert in our chapel, and it's at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 9th. This is the second time we've been there, and it's great fun when we can combine with others. If you didn't notice, we had some wonderful coverage this week, thanks to WGVU and others, commemorating our 150th anniversary. We were on TV and other places, too. Just in case you didn't know, in addition to being Fountain Street Church, we're also the home of a Buddhist community and a neo-pagan community, and they hold their meetings here on Sunday afternoon. So if you're feeling particularly contemplative, the Buddhists would love you, and if you're feeling like dancing around an oak tree, the pagans would be delighted to have you drop by this on Wednesday, April 10th. Lots of other things are going on today, but as I said, you can find them all in our order of service. For now, I'd ask you to gather your hearts and minds so that we can attend to the blessing and the pleasure that is worship as our music director begins our time together. words of invitation as we enter into our hour of worship. These words from James Viola Blake, 19th century religious liberal, who of his congregation wrote, "Love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love and to help one another. Wherever these happen, truly, a church is present, even two or three, yea, even two or three, and I am with them."
This is the day the Lord hath made. This is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Be glad.
Yes, indeed, let us rejoice and be glad, and turn our voices to song as well. Our hymn is number 74, "On the Dusty Earth Drum," a suitable hymn for the arrival of spring. Every week we welcome you in different ways and with different voices, and this week I welcome Judy Botts, a very active part of our volunteer community who will share with you not only her welcome but ours.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to see you all here. Just a few things about myself. I became an official member of Fountain Street in 2005, so that was a pretty important year. And I retired from teaching in Grand Rapids Public Schools after a 32-year career, most of it spent teaching Montessori, where I met some of you people. So six months I'm into retirement, and Paula Rowlands, who was a Montessori parent and was the volunteer coordinator here at Fountain Street then, approached me and asked if I would like to be the Purple District coordinator. I just kind of looked at her and thought, okay, what does that mean? And she said, just try it for a year or two, Judy. This is 2005, folks, and it's 2019 now, so. Anyway, Paula had been trying to restructure and consolidate what were, I believe, 15 districts in our church at the time. And she did this based upon zip codes for the most part, because our congregants come from all over. It's not like we're concentrated in one part of the city. So I said, sure. And I became one of the 6 district leaders. And within each of our districts at that time, we had 3 people helping out. One person took care of the care needs, if you needed a lift to the doctors, if you needed help getting to church or getting home. Maybe you needed help with meals, whatever. One person took care of those kinds of things. And then we had somebody that took charge of communicating within the district, sending out district emails, maybe something in the Friday Flash or the Chimes, in our hopes to connect, help everybody connect and know what's going on. And the third person's job was to organize social events within the district so we could get to know each other better, and to also put together community outreach activities. So I think at this time it would be good if I introduce the other district leaders. All right. So let's put down the purple. Sharon, okay. So Sharon Collins and Mary Jane Montgomery, as of late. Mary Jane just retired, but they were the folks that held things up and took care of the Blue District. The Blue District is huge. It stretches out all along the lake shore. It's not quite so densely populated and easy to gather as the Purple District or the Orange District. Then, let's see, we have the Green District, and Louisa Nally has been the leader of the Green District for some time. Her district includes zip codes that are pretty much north of Grand Rapids. And just as of a week ago, we have an Orange District leader now. Lauren Wheeler decided to join us. So we're very delighted to have her on board. Carrie Kidder, who has been the Red District leader, is out on a medical leave of absence now. He'll be back to join us again in September, he hopes. And that leaves the Yellow District. We need somebody to pull the reins up in the Yellow District. So if you know anybody that might be interested, please talk to one of us. And this isn't, how do I want to say? It's not rocket science, people. This is not a hard thing to do. If within your district you can think there's one thing that you want to do that you think would be fun and pull people together, maybe you want to have a baseball game in the summer, or get together over at Collins Park, or go to the lake, or go to a movie, go bowling, whatever. Just approach us, make the suggestion, and we can help you to get that kind of thing organized. Our church, our districts are as strong as our connections within the district are. So, anyway, I wanted to give you a little bit of history before I leave of the district leadership. This year, January 2019, marks the 15th year. We have been 6 districts. We had to consolidate due to budgetary constraints that led to reduced staffing changes. So we became more involved with behind-the-scenes kinds of things. And I guess organizing what we decided to call rainbow activities, because they included all the districts. Just some examples of these kinds of things that I'm speaking about. We organize the annual picnic, and this coming fall will be a very special annual picnic, as it is our street fair, September 15th, that celebrates our 150th anniversary. So district people will be definitely helping out with that. We also support and help to organize the all-church workday, which is coming up next Saturday from 9 to 1. And Melissa and Jamie are hoping that as many of you as can will volunteer to help. They're looking especially for people, strong people, to help move some things that have been stored in rooms for a long time that just need to go. So give Melissa a call at the church and let her know if you can help out next Saturday. All right, another thing that we used to do was to help with memorials, but that became such a big job that it was decided we should establish a memorial guild, which has been, that has worked quite well. So that took a fair amount of, shall I say, stress off of our shoulders. We also help with the Sweet and Savory Sunday activity, which Louisa leads with the Green District. And again, this coming December, this will be a culminating activity for the entire 150th year celebration. Yeah, and there are different things that we are promoting and helping with in terms of the 150th celebration. And I hope that many of you have filled out your 150 challenge. If you haven't, we can help you out with that. And we'd like to just, again, this is another way to pull people in and include you. As you do this, your challenges are being projected in the social hall. Maybe you've noticed. It would be really nice if you could send along a picture of yourself doing whatever it is. Send these to Connor, and he'll take care of that. Most immediately, though, this coming Wednesday at Brewery Vivant, we will be showcasing, we will be premiering the Fountain Streeter beer, which they have produced for us. It's a Saison beer. Somebody who's a beer aficionado, please tell me what that means, because I'm not. But this event takes place from 5 to 8 o'clock at Brewery Vivant. And what else should I tell you about that? Oh, there'll be live music. Parking. Parking could be an issue, so yeah, check that out and just do the best you can with that. There is parking behind the brewery, if I remember correctly. Okay, I guess in closing, what I would like to say is welcome to all of you to Fountain Street Church. Be you here for a day or for a lifetime. It's a house of worship for all people, where you can come to free your mind, grow your soul, and help change the world. Welcome.
With
Y'all, make sure I'm working. Y'all know Reverend Billy? You don't know Reverend Billy? He lives in New York City. And he's been pastor of the Church of Stop Shopping now for about 15 years. And every Christmas time you can find him in the shopping districts of New York, which are abundant, warning people that they should join. They're losing their souls to their consumer tastes. I went and saw his worship at Joe's Pub once. If you go, check him out. Way better than what we do here. And I don't mean to put down the choir, but they can rock it, people. They really do. But my point here is that in Lent, we get into this what can I give up thing as though somehow it means you should do without pleasures or, like chocolate or sweets or alcohol or whatever it is. But it really is about letting go of things that don't matter, the things that are non-essential. And I thought about this because there's the story about Francis of Assisi, who, when he got the sense that he was called into the service of the church or in the service of God, literally, he's the son of a very important person, and he stood in the square in Assisi and stripped off all his clothes. I mean, all of his clothes, and gave them very rich clothes to the people who needed them. That's very similar to what you could read in the Christian gospel about the rich young man who comes to Jesus and says, well, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, have you followed the commandments? And the young man says, yeah, very faithfully. He said, well, then you only have 2 more things to do. Give away everything you have to the poor. Take up your cross and follow me. And the man was dejected, for he had many things. That's related to that whole, you cannot serve 2 masters, God and mammon. It's that, who do you serve? And how many of us are kind of slaves to our stuff? Come on, think about it. If you're doing laundry, if you're eating food, you're in a relationship with stuff. Now, you may need clothing and you do need food, but I began to think maybe I don't need as many clothes as I have, because I looked in my closet and I have a lot of clothes. Now, they're practical. But it occurred to me that if I'm not using them, maybe someone else could. So I'm not taking my clothes off. Not happening. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I mean, I bought these shirts when I moved here. They're really nice, but I haven't worn them in years. They're in pretty good shape. And so I'm thinking maybe I can find new homes for them. And so I brought them in, and perhaps if you're welcome to them, but maybe some of the folks who are visiting with us in the social hall. These are really good shirts. Bought them at Back Racks. Good place. They went out of business. These are mementos now. So I'm going to put these over here. But they're good. And I like the colors. And, I mean, how many of us have too few T-shirts? Come on. And I used to live in Texas, so if you want to, so this one that I got from the Hyde Park Gym. And I don't look good enough to wear this one now, so I'm going to find a more robust-looking person to wear that one. And let's see, what else do I have? I have a Fountain Street Church, because I have like 3 or 4, and I only have one body. So if you want that one, that's there for you. I have Frederick Douglass here, and he's looking good. And on the back, it talks about, freedom's never won without a struggle. So if you're feeling kind of righteous, that's a good thing to do. You are free to have these things. And I really want you to think about them. A nice, just plain old ordinary shirt. I mean, I counted out like dozens of things. Now, I just gave blood today, but last time I gave blood, there was this one. Am I going to wear this again? Probably not. And when I was a candidate, I joined a march with the folks over at Cosecha, the ones that were working against ICE. And if you don't like ICE, this is your shirt. Why not? You should wear it. And a pair of shorts I don't wear. How many of us have stuff like this in our houses? Probably a few of us. Now, that doesn't mean you should take them home, although if you want any of this stuff, you're welcome to it, because I got other shirts here, and they're really pretty good. And I'll just leave them over here for now. But then I looked around and saw other stuff. I have these really cool reproduction tiles from medieval churches. I bought them when I was a teenager. These are reproductions from the Walters Art Gallery in Baltimore, where I grew up. There are pictures of the entombment of Mary, and of the Nativity. I don't need these anymore. If you'd like to decorate your house with these things, I want you to take them. There's an icon over here. Really nice looking shell. If you like those sort of, I have a gyroscope. Honestly, I don't have any use for a gyroscope now. And wow, I bought a lot of flag pins when I was on the campaign trail. I just have, what can I say, I don't need them as much anymore. But if you really want a memento, I've got at least one of my campaign buttons here, of many, if you'd like to keep that as a memento. Someone gave me a lovely little necklace with a chai on it. That's the symbol for life. And if you'd like to have that, I don't wear necklaces, so you're welcome to that. And there's a cross here and a yin-yang, and I have two, count them, 2 pecans taken from trees in Greece. If you want a little bit of Greece, they're right here. And there's and 2 Black Lives Matter pins, and I'm just getting started. There's an entire selection of, look at what I'm doing here. I had to get this out of here. There's the entire Will and Ariel Durant series down here. If you have a history thing, you're welcome to them. I'm never going to read these things. Let's look at the other stuff down here. A 2-volume version of the Oxford Unabridged Dictionary. You need to have a magnifying glass to look at it, and it's included. A Gospels from a Roman Catholic priest, suitable for celebrating Mass. Any priest in the making, it's yours today. Leo Rosten's book on American religions. Books by Fountain Streeters, all sorts. Choir, have I got something for you? Shape notebooks. Dudes, learn these. A feather. Someone gave this to me the first year I was here, and it's been in my office forever. Someone else needs to care for it now. And of course, Tibetan prayer flags. They're inside. They need to hang outside. You know why? Because the prayers are only released when they flap in the wind. I'm not kidding. If they hang in my office, they're doing nobody any good. My point here is that we all have things that we hang on to for no good reason. And we should probably start thinking about lightening our load on the planet. Not just because it's bad for the planet, because it's bad for you. Our elder son has figured this all out. He's 35 years old, fully employed. He's got himself insurance and everything, and he refuses to buy real estate. And he has no use for an automobile. And every time we give him clothes, he said, "Mom, I already have 5 shirts." I think he's on to something. So, this is all for you. If you want it, you don't have to take it. If you don't want it, I'll find someplace else to put it. But I would encourage you to go home and look at the stuff that owns you rather than the stuff you own. Give it a good look. There is nothing more liberating than finding new homes for the stuff that you own. There it is, people. I think we're done. We're going to do an offering. Is that what next? What's next? Someone tell me. You're just going to sing now? Just music. Cool. I know you're going to sing. That's what I mean. It's not just music. It's choir music. Okay. And then we'll do the offering. And during the offering, if you want to come and shop, feel free. All right? Choir, let's hear some great music, okay? Yeah, I'm back. Because I'm serious. You give an offering every week. This is your chance to get one of those. It's like when you pay for something with NPR and you say, if you give us $50, we'll send you this. But you get to pick. I actually invite you during the offering, if you wish, to come down and inspect this and see if there's anything here that has value to you. Personal, emotional value. It is a spiritual task I'm putting before you, not a shopping task. Is there an object here that has value to you? I don't care what it is, you decide. But I'll bring everything else down here because it is a transaction. You are not just giving to the church, you're getting at the same time. And sometimes the getting is hard to figure out. For those who don't know, every offering at Fountain Street Church on Sunday has two parts. Some people are paying their pledge of support, and that's great, and we need it very, very much. But many of you put cash in the plate, and in case you don't know, cash does not stick around here. We give it a new job. It might end up at Heartside Ministries. It might end up at Planned Parenthood. It might end up at a school in El Salvador. It might end up in an organization that's doing the things we cannot do, but the things we believe in. So make sure when you put something in the plate, you know what you're doing. If you want to support the church, I am so excited. But if you want to support our ministry to the world, I'm just as excited. And feel free to come down and find something that you want to keep as well as something you want to give. Your offering and mine for the spiritual life that we believe in, that offering will be most gratefully received. free to stop down anytime in the middle of my sermon. If you wish, let me turn these around so you get a better look. There's fun stuff here. It really is. I'm going to go get my readings so that you know what I'm going to get a hint as to where I'm going today. I have two passages, and they're up in the pulpit, so let me go get them. I've been talking about Paul for weeks and weeks, and I'm going to do that right up to the end of the season, meaning Easter. And I'm reading from chapter 11. And in that, he makes an analogy toward a piece of argument about what is the role of Judaism or Jews in this new movement. And he says, if the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. And if the root is holy, then the branches are holy. But if some of the branches were broken off and you, a wild shoot, were grafted in their place to share the rich root of the olive tree, do not vaunt yourselves over the branches. Remember that it is not you that support the root, but the root that supports you. And because this is an anniversary week on another way, Dr. Martin Luther King gave his final speech before being assassinated on April 3rd, 1968, 51 years ago. He was in Memphis addressing the sanitation workers' strike. It's a long speech, and I'm taking a passage at the early part, not the familiar end. It's all right to talk about long white robes over yonder in all of its symbolism, but ultimately people want suits and dresses and shoes to wear down here. It's all right to talk about streets flowing with milk and honey, but God commanded us to be concerned with the slums down here and his children who can't eat 3 square meals a day. It's all right to talk about the New Jerusalem, but one day God's preacher must talk about the new New York, the new Atlanta, the new Philadelphia, the new Los Angeles, the new Memphis, Tennessee. This is what we have to do. With those words in mind, I turn to those whose lives we commemorate each week at the moment of their completion, whose deaths took place at this time in this year and in years past, and lift them up not only as people to be remembered, but as ancestors of this institution whose presence is still with us in these walls, in this ministry, in this community. I lift up the names of this week and last week: Lillian Nebeling, Morley Wilson, Jerry Waterman Hamp, Adrian Dawson, Bunty Voss, Ken Fry, Maxine Harrigan, Don Hallis, Trudy Flagg, Grant Bruell, Dorothy Kleiner, Tom Blanford, Edie McCarger, Don Cranenberg Sr., Bob Baumbach, Bert Smith, Gordon McCarty, Laura Gray, Russ Gray Jr., and Earl Klum. El Malay Rachamim, Shakim Barachamim, God filled with mercy, dwelling in the heavens heights, bring proper rest beneath the wings of your Shekinah to the souls of our beloved and our blameless who went to their eternal place of rest. May you, who are a source of mercy, shelter them beneath your wings eternally. Bind them to you and to we the living, that they may rest in peace, that we may be at peace, and let us all say, Amen. And now, a little bit of music to set the stage. Dan, can you do that? That's the Campbells. It's a father-daughter couple. And in 1977, that was the #1 country and western hit, Heaven's Just a Sin Away. And it's a wonderful play on words, and I'll come back to that, you can be sure. But let me back up and get a running start. Has your head ever been so full that you had to stop thinking for a while? There's just so much stuff going on. Well, that's what happens to me most every week as I'm trying to get the sermon to happen. I have an idea, then another one happens, and another, and it becomes a crowd demanding my attention, a thicket through which I cannot find myself. And now and then it gets so confusing that I have to stop and do something else, which is why I do it at home, because there's always laundry or dishes, something with my body I can do. And I'm thanking goodness for spring actually showing up this year, because now I can go outside and I can rake up the dead leaves, which are in abundance. Something about the repeated motion of the rake, the reality of dirt and leaves, the simplicity of that act helps to settle the dust in my head and make the ideas that I don't need to share fall to the earth. It's my own fault, of course, because I chose to read Paul all year and preach about him in this skeptical and liberal church, and I could honestly give up any Sunday and say, I'm done, I just don't want to do this anymore. There's no rule commanding me to do this at all. And the next chapters in Romans, chapters 9 through 11, are some of the most difficult linguistically, theologically, and morally I have encountered. They're about the hardest there are. The easiest thing for me to say is, look at those chapters, and you'll discover that Paul is wrong, and be done. That's the end of the sermon. Are you okay with that? I don't think so. But neither would I, because that would be quitting. I don't know about you, but I don't like giving up a task just because it gets difficult. When I was a boy, I was notorious for avoiding risk and challenge and failure. Fear of failure was powerful. Fear of rejection was powerful. Fear of taunting, and ultimately the fear of being shown to be weak helped me avoid responsibility far too many times. Just admitting that now, even 50 years later, is hard. No person wants to say they were a chicken or a coward. But the legacy of that time so affected me that the idea of quitting is now more shameful than all those others. I would rather fail in an attempt than to give up before failing. And that's where I am with Paul. The legacy of that time is still with me. So I got up Saturday morning, I tried again. The sound of Pete Seeger came to mind as I racked my brain, and I remembered I am waist deep in the big muddy, and the big fool said to push on, and that's me. And then it dawned on me, Paul is exactly in the same place I am. He is waist deep in a big muddy of his own making. The middle chapters, 9 through 11, as we call them now, are a quagmire of argument and logic as he tries to explain to himself and to others why the Judean world, what we call the Jews, but a community with a place and a name as well as a religion, why that community from which Jesus came did not embrace him. How this is both a sin on their part, but also part of some larger plan. I have read learned commentaries, which are themselves quagmires of logic and argument. All of them seem like that joke I heard Maury Amsterdam tell years ago about the fellow shopping for a suit. And the salesman said, try this one on. And the man said, well, it looks pretty good, but the coat keeps falling off my shoulders. So well, just put your chin over here and hold it like that, okay? Doesn't it look great now? And he said, it does. And the pants, they droop a little bit. He said, well, just put your hands right here and they'll look great. And sure enough, he said, as he looked in the mirror, I look pretty good. He bought the suit, starts walking down the street and passes two gentlemen. One of them says to the other, that poor fellow. And the other says, yeah, but don't the suit fit nice? To some extent, Christian theology feels like a suit that doesn't fit reality. And so it contorts itself, the community, to make it fit. And while it looks good as it drapes over the body itself is contorted. From Irenaeus to Alvin Plantinga, they seem to be trying to fit this promise in Jesus and in Christianity over a reality that refuses to hold it just right. Or, borrowing another analogy, since remember Paul uses them too, if you remember from your history class, there was a time before Copernicus, and everybody thought that the sun, the earth was at the center of the universe. Absolutely. It had to be because God made the earth first, right? Then made the sun. And the trouble was that all the other stars and moons and planets went around it in theory, but they didn't make sense. And so astronomers and astrologers explained them through what they called epicycles, how they could go forward and backward and go in all these odd directions. And it was an elaborate system to explain it. And then Copernicus said, well, if the sun's in the middle, it all works out. And it did. It's as if Christianity has said, this is what is at the center, and I'm going to deny every reality that conflicts with it. And I'm going to contract, construct, manipulate reality until the suit fits. You can hear Paul doing that when he says, Gentiles who did not strive for righteousness have attained it, but Israel, who did strive for righteousness based on the law, did not succeed in fulfilling the law. Why not? He asks rhetorically, and answers, being ignorant of the righteousness that comes from God and seeking to establish their own, they have not submitted to God's righteousness. He's laboring to figure out why things are the way they are. These and other parts of Christian scripture, as you know, sponsored and gave birth and continue to support anti-Jewish persecution even to this day. And millions have died as we've tried to put this ill-fitting suit over reality. Paul keeps trying, though. He says, through their stumbling, meaning Israel, salvation has come to the Gentiles. What? And if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life? He's turning things backwards and forwards, trying to find some rhyme or reason. That's when he goes to those two analogies I mentioned earlier. If the part of the dough offered as first fruits is holy, then the whole batch is holy. And if the root is holy, then the branches are also holy. He's trying to say that even though the Jews have not accepted Jesus, they're the ones from whom he came. They're the leaven of the loaf. They're the root from which the branch comes. So you can't reject them. That's the funny part, because we get all this anti-Jewish stuff, but no one reads but it's okay with God that it's like that. We're selective readers as well as selective believers. Paul, at least to me, is engaged in an agonizing effort to reconcile his Jewishness with his Christianity, his community with the Gentiles to whom he is connected. And that's where those analogies come in. Now, one of the things that we overlook now is that when he refers to the dough, he's referring to a Jewish ritual. Every time you bake bread in a Jewish household, you take a piece of the dough and you hurl it to the back of the oven. Why? Because it was supposed to be offered to the priests, and the priests no longer exist. So you must sacrifice a part of it. I have a box of matzah at home. It's a great cracker, by the way. And on the side of it, it says, matzah is taken. So it's kosher because a piece of the dough was literally incinerated in the same oven. That was clear to Paul, but it's lost to most people now. But the point was that there was a sacrifice, the Jews, that have consecrated the Gentiles. But we don't know that now because that's been lost. And likewise with the olive tree, we don't graft trees anymore, so we have no knowledge of what he's talking about. But he's trying to say, and he says very distinctly, do not become proud of yourselves, Gentiles, but stand in awe, meaning, remember, you were not the original and you depend upon them. And now I come to the song. Having done my biblical duty to teach you stuff you don't know, to prove I'm an expert, I'm going to move on. Heaven's just a sin away. It's a play on words. You heard that already. Country and Western music loves titles like that. My absolute favorite country and Western song, if only for the title, is I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than have a frontal lobotomy. It does exist. I have heard the song. So if you think that these are down-market, illiterate songs, they are not. They're often based on very artful plays on words. And if you've been here on Sunday for the last few weeks, you've heard a few of them. The lyrics are very standard about some poor woman who is feeling tempted by somebody else. It's the title that got my attention because he's almost saying that heaven's just a sin away, meaning that the sins, so to speak, of the nation of Israel is what helped the Gentiles get into Jesus and Christianity. He's literally making that argument. The sin of Israel's rejection is the doorway through which the Gentiles entered. God had a plan, and it's bigger than you and me. It all has a purpose. And how many of us have heard everything happens for a reason? There's even a book about it. Everything happens for a reason, and other lies I have had to unlearn, because it is a lie. Now, I understand people like to use that phrase to say that your suffering or your loss or your struggle is not meaningless. It's part of the larger plan. But you can flip that over real fast. And it says, so God wanted you to suffer, but not you. Wanted you to get cancer and you to be healthy, you to be poor and you to be rich. And that sounds a little ungodly, if you ask me. It also seems to say that it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. It's part of the plan, right? And in fact, W.H. Auden, in that same poem, for the time being, Christmas Oratorio, puts that very concern in the mouth of Herod when Herod, realizing the danger of unlimited forgiveness of sins, waxes sardonic and says, every cook will argue, I like committing crimes, God likes forgiving them, really the world is admirably arranged. That's the problem with everything happens for a reason. It becomes a moral crutch, both to excuse and evade and avoid the real damage we do to each other and the real suffering we endure, not only from others, but from life itself. But that idea, it begins there. To make the suit fit, to make the planets align, Paul and everyone after has to conclude that God intended all the good and all the bad, including the rejection of Jesus by the Jews, and that their suffering, therefore, is legitimate, and my advantages are earned, that it is part of some cosmic scheme that ultimately makes sense. And I got to say, I do sympathize with the notion. I understand why people want to think that their lives make sense, even when they feel senseless. But I am sincerely uncertain that such a scheme really exists, and that if it does, that anyone knows what it is. Even Paul gives up at the end of the chapter saying, oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and inscrutable his ways. Presuming to know the future is, for Paul, for me, perhaps you, the most elemental sin of all. To claim knowledge one cannot have, to put yourself in the place of God. Back at the beginning of the letter, Paul says this when he reminds the Roman community that the one who is righteous will live by faith, but claiming to be wise, they become fools. In other words, we do well to question our own excellence. Putting faith in something other than God is ultimately to put your faith in something that is not God and not worthy of your faith, your trust. For Paul, for others, for me, genuine faith is the literal opposite of self-confidence. Self-confidence is something we love. I've heard it said by someone, there's nothing sexier than a man with self-confidence. That makes me one of the least sexy men in the world. But it means to trust yourself. Well, we want people who trust themselves, who have nerve and dash and courage, but self-confidence literally means you believe in yourself the way you would believe in God. Same word. Confide with faith. It is idolatry, friends. To believe in yourself above all is to put your faith in the least reliable agent available. There are at least a couple of reasons why we should look much more carefully at self-confidence. One is that not being self-confident myself, that feels like the sin. I should be more self-confident. What's wrong with me that I'm not more self-confident? Turns out nothing. But I still feel that way because we admire self-confidence. You should not put yourself down. You shouldn't be like that. You should be more self-confident. Why? Name me a reason, a morally sturdy reason for self-confidence. Unless you're God, you don't have one. But here is Paul warning people that they should be putting their ultimate trust not in themselves, but in something larger. Now, you might say, well, that can't be relied upon. I would agree. But the principle is worth considering. When people ask why I might believe in God, and I might, my most sardonic answer is believing in anything else is even more delusional. The second reason that comes to me is that because we are drawn to self-confident people, we believe in them even when we should not. And the costs of following the self-confident who have no cause to feel confident means to put ourselves in danger. And that's where Pete Seeger comes in. And Danny, we're going to listen to a song. It says in the gospel when Jesus pronounces a parable and they are mystified, he says, let those with eyes see and let those with ears hear. Every time I read the paper, I think we're waist deep in the big muddy. I'll let that go. This is not a political sermon. And remember, Brutus is an honorable man. In that last speech given on April 4th, 1968, Dr. King began it with this thought experiment. If I were standing at the beginning of time and the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, what age would you like to live in? He then goes on to mention Egypt and Rome, the Renaissance and the Reformation, but concludes saying, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now, that's a strange statement to make, he continues, because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Let those with eyes hear and those with ears see. Trouble is in the land, confusion all around. That's a strange statement. But I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. Dr. King knew the genuine sinfulness of the world. He experienced it in his own person, again and again. It was this deep awareness of sin, the reality of darkness, that revealed to him the stars by which he steered his course. Those with faith in the princes of the land put their faith in what they think is a sun, but is in fact a dark night. It was not his faith in human nature that kept him going, but his faith in the justice that is larger than human nature. We remember what he said at the end, I just want to do God's will. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had some leaders who could say that with integrity and honesty and then do it? What does that mean, to do God's will? It is to follow the star of truth, the star of justice, that which stands above and beyond the thing the song tells us to choose something like. A dear colleague, now deceased, wrote a Christmas story I've remembered forever about a parent and a young child preparing for the holiday. They were decorating the tree, I believe, and the parent was hurrying to get things done and had fallen to muttering and complaining about how hard it was to get the star on top of the tree. And the child, a young child with not very good grammar, filled with the righteousness only children can muster, said to the parent, upbraiding it, "You be glad at that star." We should stop paying attention to the bright suns that offer themselves as self-confident beacons and be glad at the stars that are out beyond all the bright lights of the day. King was glad at that star that would cost him his life. We need to be glad at that star, no matter where it takes us. That's the faith we need. Believing in something like a star. To be glad to believe in something like a star. It's not whether the star exists, but whether we have the courage, not the self-confidence, the courage to look beyond the bright lights and follow the star. May these words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my rock and my Redeemer. Turn back, oh man. Boy, do we have a great hymn coming. Number 120. It's actually turn back, turn back. We've made the text a little more encompassing than it has been historically. It's a great old, as I remember, is this a Genevan hymn tune or something like that? But it's Genevan Psalter. So let's saunter on over to sing the Genevan Psalter, turn back, forswear thy foolish ways. Advice many people should be taking more to heart. Shall we join together in song? these words from Mary Oliver when she said, to live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends upon it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. And we can do that each and every day, because this and every day is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen and amen.